Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tare, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. And today I'm up to song number 2654, and that one is Boogie Shoes by Casey and the Sunshine Band. And this was actually released twice. It was first released on their album entitled, this their debut album, just called Casey and the Sunshine Band, which came out in 1975, I believe. And it was also featured on the soundtrack to this very popular movie, Saturday Night Fever, which I'm sure you guys have all heard of, probably seen. I think just about everybody saw it when it was out, and just about everybody seemed to buy the album too. It was the height of the disco era, and this song was prominently featured on that album, and that's when I first heard it. And I guess I'm first going to talk about the song a little bit. Um, you know, it's kind of funny. I liked Casey and the Sunshine Band when they first came out. I remember when they first came out. I don't think disco was quite popular. This was around 1975. I think funk was popular, but I don't think no too many people knew about disco yet, or at least it wasn't really called disco. I think that kind of started in 1976. But I think of Casey and the Sunshine Band as a disco band, kind of an early disco band. And I liked them. I don't know. I mean, their music's kind of dumb. I agree. It's very simplistic. Like that's the way. I like it. It's pretty sexual and it's pretty mindless. But it was popular. A lot of people danced to it, and I'm sure they did a lot more to it as well. But my sister hated them. I don't know why. I liked them. My sister hated them. And I remember when Saturday Night Fever came out. I think most people liked disco when it became popular. I think just about everybody liked Saturday Night Fever. That's why it was such a popular movie. Everybody loved John Travolta, at least all the women did, because of his moves and because he was a very handsome and sexy guy, obviously. But, aside from that, I don't know. I mean, my sister liked the music in Saturday Night Fever. I guess she even liked the Bee Gees, when they had their big hits like Staying Alive and Night Fever and all that. But what she didn't know was that, we had this album too. We got the soundtrack shortly after we saw the movie. And my sister really liked the song Boogie Shoes. But what she didn't know was it was by Casey and the Sunshine Band. And when she found out it was by Casey and the Sunshine Band, she was really disappointed, as you can imagine. I don't know, maybe kind of like when everybody found out that Phil Spector was a murderer, just a kind of a shock to the system. But anyway, I liked him anyway, so it didn't alter my opinion of the song. And I do like the song Boogie Shoes. It's a very catchy song. It's a good song to dance to, and it's not quite as dirty as a lot of their other songs. I don't even think their songs are dirty. I mean, dirty is a very relative term. Um, I don't know. Most number one songs aren't what I would call dirty. At least up to about 1990. I haven't followed much music after that, but I don't think dirty songs were able to get to number one for the most part. But maybe Casey and the Sunshine Band's an exception to that rule. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But anyway, enough of that. Now I guess I just want to talk about the band Casey and the Sunshine Band. As you can see, they were a very big band. I don't even know how many members. I think they ended up with more members. This is, I think, the original lineup, and they were formed in 1973 in Hialeah, Florida. I guess they got their name because Florida is a sunshine state, so they named themselves after the state they were from, the Sunshine Band. And the two founding members were Henry Wayne Casey and Richard Finch, and they were both white. I mean, as you can see, this was a kind of a mixed band. Some members were white. I think most of them were black. I used to think they were all black. Maybe just because I thought funk music was exclusively black. I mean, I knew that the song played at Funky Music by Wild Cherry. I knew Wild Cherry was a white group, but I didn't know there were any other white funk artists. And I guess they were, including the founding members of Casey and the Sunshine Band, shows what I knew. But anyway, here they are. And besides writing and I guess producing Casey and the Sunshine Band's hits, and by the way, they had a lot of big hits. They had five number ones. They were one of the biggest bands of the '70s. I guess they rode on the wave of disco and funk's popularity, I think. But I like their songs, even though they are kind of mindless. And these guys didn't just write the song for Casey and the Sunshine Band. They also wrote another number one song for this guy here, George McCrae. He had a number one hit in 1974 called "Rock Your Baby," which was, I don't know if you could call that a disco hit. If it was disco, it was one of the earliest disco hits. Maybe you could call it disco. People weren't really calling it disco back then, but I guess you could say disco started in 1974, in retrospect. But yeah, so anyway, I'll just go through the other hits by KC and the Sunshine Band, or their hits. So their first hit was in 1973. It was called Queen of Clubs. That one went to number 66. In 1975, they had their first number one song called Get Down Tonight. And then later that year, they had Shotgun Shuffle, which just barely made the Hot 100, went to number 88. But then they followed it up with their second number one, That's the Way I Like It. And then in 1976, they had their third number one, Shake, 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 Shake Your Booty. And then in '77 they followed that up with a song that just missed number one, went to number two, called "Keep It Comin' Love," and that they followed up with "Wrap Your Arms Around Me," which went to number 48. In 1978 they had the song I'm featuring today, "Boogie Shoes," which went to number 35. I think it should have gone higher, but that's as far as it went. I don't know why. And then later that year, they had a cover of a song by the Four Tops called "It's the Same Old Song." That one also went to number 35. Then they had "Do You Feel All Right," which went to number 63. They had a song called "Who Do You Love," which went to 68. I don't know. I've never heard their version of this song. I don't know if it's the same song by what's his name, George Thorogood and the Destroyers. That one is coming up on my list, by the way. But I don't know if it's the same song by Casey and the Sunshine Band. Maybe you guys can tell me that. 1979, they had a song called "Do You Want to Go Party," which went to number 50. And then in 1980, they had their fifth and final number one. I believe this was the first number one song of 1980, by the way. They just missed having five number ones in the '70s. They missed it by one number one. I think they were beat out by "Escape," the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes. But anyway, they had "Yes, I'm Ready," which went to, or no, "Please Don't Go," which went to number one. And later that year, they had "Yes, I'm Ready," featuring Tend Sano. And this was a remake from the '60s. I don't remember who did the original version. I was never crazy about either versions of this song, by the way. It's a pretty kind of sappy teenage love ballad. Kind of belongs in the '50s, I think. It didn't belong in the '80s at all. I don't think it even really belonged in the '60s. But anyway, there it is. That one then went to number two in 1980. They later that year they had a cover of "Dancing in the Streets," which went to 66. Of course, the original version of that one was by Martha and the Vandellas. Their version came out in 1964. Finally, 1983, they had "Give It Up," which went to number 83. So, like I said, a very prolific band with a lot of hits, and I like them. Maybe not everybody does, but I do. And I guess that concludes my feature for today on Boogie Shoes by Casey and the Sunshine Band. Yeah. Thank you for watching. You guys rock, and I'll see you guys next time.